are watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Muslim artists in Calgary recently had the chance to show their works at the annual Muslim Art Movement. We will talk to the president of the Western Muslim Initiative, which runs the show, Mim Fatmi. But first, some news headlines. Canada celebrates 15th Islamic History Month. Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops talk reconciliation. Windsor Muslims participate in Run for the Cure. 32 children die in Indonesia stadium disaster. And now the details. This October marks the 15th Canadian Islamic History Month. In 2007, the Canadian Parliament officially declared October as a month to recognise the contributions and role of Muslims in Canadian communities. Events are held throughout the month so that people can learn more about Islamic history and get familiar with Canadian Muslims in different fields, such as arts, sports, academics, politics, and humanitarian services. A Heritage Canada press release says the month is, quote, also a time to acknowledge the ongoing challenges and barriers that Muslim Canadians face. Islamic History Month also gives Canadians a chance to understand the misconceptions about Islam and ways to address them. At the close of this year's four-day plenary assembly, the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, or CCCB, has announced more efforts towards reconciliation without committing to a more prompt process of monetary compensation. Last year, CCCB promised to raise $30 million for healing and reconciliation initiatives. The CCCC board says that the Indigenous Reconciliation Fund established in January has raised $5.5 million so far. CCCB Vice President William McGrattan says that the delay in compensation is to strengthen the relationship between local dioceses and Indigenous peoples. Media sources report that the Canadian Catholic Church spent $18.6 million this year on the Pope's visit. Members from Windsor Islamic Association's Muslim Youth Club Sisters Program have raised $3,005 for breast cancer research. This comes from their participation yesterday in the annual Canadian Cancer Society, CIBC's 31st annual Run for the Cure. Running under their banner titled Pink Hijab and Friends, Muslim men and women gathered early morning at the riverside to show their support for the event. Many Muslim women wore pink hijabs. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. 1 in 33 dies from the disease. The Canadian Cancer Society, CIBC Run for the Cure, estimates around 40,000 participants, and volunteers in 53 communities across Canada raised $13 million. At least 32 children died in Indonesia's stadium disaster Saturday, as the government ordered police to identify the perpetrators of one of the deadliest disasters in football history. The tragedy in the city of Malang saw a total of 125 people killed and 323 others injured. Officers fired tear gas in a packed stadium to quell a pitch invasion, triggering a stampede. An official at the Women's Empowerment and Child Protection Ministry says dozens of children were caught in the chaos, with the youngest being a toddler aged 3 or 4. Indonesia's Chief Security Minister has announced that a task force has been formed for an investigation. And that's it for the news. For the last 10 years, an organisation based in Calgary, Alberta, called the Western Muslim Initiative, has organised an art show for Muslim artists to display and sell their works. This year's was on September 17th with the theme Heritage. To talk to us, we are joined by the president of the Western Muslim Initiative, Mim Fatmi. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. I was very excited to hear about this. I can't believe I've lived in Ontario all these years and I've never heard of this. Does that tell us about the divide in Canada between like the West and the East?
It must be something like that. I think that this has been going on in Calgary, at least in Western Canada, for quite a long time, and we're so proud that it's been growing. But it's only recently that it feels like it's starting to gain like more traction and coverage and national recognition.
I want to ask you about the artists and their work, but I have to ask you about the title, Muslim Art Movement X. I keep thinking of Malcolm X. Like, is there something special about the X?
Oh, not particularly. It's actually the Roman numeral 10, and we've always gone by Roman numerals. And so this year it's just exciting that we're finally in our 10th year.
Oh, so if it had been last year, it would have been 1X.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay, well, that clears that up. So tell us then, you had it on the 17th. It was in a venue. Tell us who was there. Tell us about the event.
It was a really fantastic event. We essentially had almost 300 attendees, between upwards of 20 artists, several performers, and the rest of them being attendees that were both Muslim and non-Muslim alike, kind of the general public who are interested in supporting Muslim art. And so that's really what the show is focused around, is celebrating Muslim artists who have so much to contribute in the art scene, but often don't feel like they have a space for that, or don't feel like they necessarily fit into, let's say, the Western gallery style. And here it was a celebration of something that is really important to a lot of people, which is heritage, whether that meant, their ethnicity, relating back to generations, or even how they identify living here in Canada and being a Muslim growing up in the West. And so
tell us about the different kinds of the different kind of art forms that you had there.
We had lots of different formats of visual art. So that includes like painting, photography, several poems that were published, in print, but that might be accompanied with visual art pieces. And then in addition, we had two performers, one of whom plays guitar, one of who is a rapper.
So on the theme of heritage, and you were just mentioning, their ethnicity or their background, what were some of the themes that the concept of heritage brought out in the artworks?
Some of the really beautiful pieces would, portray women who are dressed in traditional ethnic clothing that maybe we're just not used to seeing, pouring water out of vases and doing things that we are sometimes so removed from in the West. A lot of the artists, actually a few of them are Palestinian in origin, and I know that was very important for them to be able to have that come through in their art. And then some people, simply with their photography, they feel like they're able to capture moments of heritage, whether that's within themselves or what they see around them.
I was scrolling through the Facebook where you were advertising in building up, I guess, to the show. Every day or two, you'd put out an image of an artist, a little snippet about their kind of art. And I noticed that there were a lot of women. In fact, as I was scrolling, it was like a woman, a woman, a woman, a woman, a woman. I was like, oh, and I wondered, is this an art show targeting women artists? And then there was a couple of men who showed up, so I realized that it wasn't. But can you tell us a little bit about that? Was it purposeful or accidental, or what about the gender relationship to the art show?
It wasn't necessarily purposeful, and it certainly is not intended to exclude men, but I do wonder if women feel a bit more comfortable expressing their creativity in the form of art like that. I actually wish that we got more male artists and people who felt like they could portray their masculinity through their art. So it isn't intentional. It really, we try to be as welcoming and as open as possible.
How do the artists find you, or how do you find the artists?
We put out a call for artists through social media, through Instagram and Facebook, several months ahead of time. And we do have an application process. And as long as the art is meeting the criteria in terms of theme and quality, we would be happy to exhibit it. And then most of it is just word of mouth. So many people are now, having attended this event, are already bookmarking it in their minds for next year.
Is it Calgary only artists? Tell us a little bit about your criterion for selection.
No, so we have not been exclusionary that way. We've actually been open to artists essentially from anywhere. We've never really had a situation where it was someone where we had to talk about it, but we've had artists from Edmonton and Vancouver certainly show up. And yeah, even this year there were several artists that drove down from Edmonton.
Arts is not normally promoted in the Muslim community. How do the artists, what do they share with you about their decision to do art and the reaction of their friends and family?
I think that's one of the really beautiful parts of the event is we get to hear from people who are tapping into a creative side that they just don't often. They don't have the opportunity and they don't have the prompting. And what the Western Muslim Initiative does, even throughout the year, is sometimes we'll host smaller artist workshops or things that do encourage people to get in touch with their creative side, and just trying to decrease the stigma around art and Islam as if somehow there was some contradiction. But we know that there are so many rich Islamic traditions and so much history, and even in architecture, calligraphy, so many elements where we see the beauty of art coming through within the Islamic tradition.
Well, you just used the word stigma. And do you mean within the Muslim community or without the Muslim community that there's a stigma?
I think it seems to exist within the Muslim community, the way that, whether that is whether that is related to religion itself, or it might be related to the cultures that Muslims are from. But, certainly I come from a culture where I don't think art is necessarily considered a career or a pursuit for like a means for income. It's only meant to be either a hobby or something you don't take that seriously. And we are really hoping to change some of that.
It's not only in the Muslim community. My brother's an artist too, and has faced that kind of stigma. I mean, it's not exactly false that it's hard to make a living off art unless you have a patron or something. So I wonder if you're trying to also build patrons and supporters. I noticed on the profiles, a lot of the people, as you said, they had an income somewhere else and they were doing their art like in the evenings or the weekends or something. Would that be the most common profile of the people who are exhibiting?
I think so. And not necessarily all of these individuals are even in the interest of selling their art or making money from it. It's more a matter of dedicating time to it, dedicating time to your trade and the thing that you love and this passion. So I really want to cultivate that space for people.
I noticed on your advertisement, you said that there'd be an option for buying the paintings, or the artists would get a chance to sell their works. So is it a vibrant purchase scene? Tell us a little bit about that, the business side of it.
We artists to set up whatever type of transaction they want to in terms of selling their artwork at the event. It's not an event that's meant to be a type of market or bazaar per se. The focus should be on displaying the art, but certainly they are welcome if people's eye is caught by certain pieces. We do encourage that.
What is the significance of this event to an artist?
I really hope that the significance is that Muslim artists particularly, feel like they have a space where other people who look like them are here to support their artwork and support this passion that they have. And we recognize that so many messages, so many stories are told through art that are unable to be told in any other way. A combination of wanting to create a safe space for the Muslim artists and also to that broader message of kind of decreasing the stigma around being creative and being a creative Muslim and actually welcoming that space.
Well, we're out of time, but thank you very much for joining us and giving us a glimpse. And hopefully we can check in next year for the Muslim Art Movement X1.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. If you like what we do, please share, like, and subscribe. Stay safe and God bless.